What's going on, everybody? My name is Victor. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to try to show you guys how to make this kind of architectural presentation. It is very similar to a style that has already been made famous by BIG or Bjarke Ingels Group, which is an architecture firm that's super cool. I'll leave a link to their website in the description. But yeah, so in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a presentation that looks something similar to this using only 2 apps. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is search for Formit in your favorite browser. Hopefully it's Google. And that'll bring up the Autodesk Formit homepage. Click on that. And then what we're going to be using is Formit Pro, which is free for anybody with a student ID. It's here, but to download it, just press on this download button and then press on this button and it will launch the download application. As Formit is downloading, you can get a jump or a head start on the project by going to Cadmapper. And in Cadmapper, you can obviously click on the first link, which will bring you here. If you don't have a Cadmapper account, go ahead and create one. It's free. And once you do, you sign in. What this is going to do is it's going to bring in all of the contextual building data that's right around your site, which means you don't have to model it manually. And in our situation, we're going to have a site be in San Diego, which is actually in the United States right here. And this highlighted area right here is the area that is going to be exported as geometry. And I like this because we're going to have a little bit of water, a little bit of a pier, and some taller buildings right around. And with this, it can actually get too big, and once it gets too big, you have to purchase the file. But as you can see, it's free file up to 1 square kilometer. Make sure that the SketchUp 2015 plus setting is marked. And then right here, this is basically going to set a false building height for all of the buildings that doesn't have data for, and 12 meters is roughly 40 feet, I think. So this is good for the kind of diagram that we want to do. And once we're ready, we can go ahead and say create file. Now we just need to press download, which will prompt us that the file has downloaded as a zip file. And then we can show in folder. And I'm going to use Control X to cut this from wherever it was downloaded and bring it into my big diagram video folder, and now into the Cadmapper. And don't pay any attention to that one. That was from a future, that's from what I've already done with the project. But then I'll do Control V to copy it here. And I can extract this. And let me change this to the location that it's in right now. I'll extract this. Now we can see that this folder has been extracted, and here is the SketchUp file that we want. Alright, so Formit by now has been downloaded. Let's open it. Once it's open, you'll see a pretty clean and not very cluttered user interface. But to get things started, we're gonna need to import that Cadmapper file that we just downloaded. So 2 ways to do this. You can go to File in the top left and import locally, or as you can see there, Control I. So let's press Control I and let's navigate to the correct folder, and we'll click on Open. And what we can do is zoom out and see that there's all of our building information taken from San Diego that we need. So I realize if this is your first time in Formit, you're going to be just a little bit confused as how to get around. And what I'll do is I'll link another video for a more detailed tutorial on just getting started and using Formit. But for now, I can show you just some of the basics, and then as the movie goes along, I will continue to show you just little tips and tricks. But to move, we can hold down the right mouse button, and well, actually this is panning, so this will pan us around if we want to just look at our model in different perspectives. Now to pan, actually that was orbit, my bad. Panning is when you hold down shift and hold down the right mouse button, and so you can get around your project like this pretty easily. The way that Formit handles layers and groups and things like that is somewhat unique, and again I can go over this in more detail in another tutorial that I'll link, but for now it'd be good to look at the layers that were imported. They imported the railroads, the parks, the coastline, and the outline of all the roads. And this is pretty helpful because I don't think that I'll be using the outline of the roads in this video, and so I'm just going to turn those off along with the railways and the parks and leave just the buildings on and the coastline. Now, once we have the appropriate layers on and off, I want to quickly show you how to change some of the geometry that has been imported by Cadmapper. And to do this, it requires a little bit of understanding of the grouping system. So as I hover over this building here, it highlights all the buildings and puts a dash box around them. That means that all of these things are in the same group, and we can see that if we click on our groups tree tab here. If I click on this right here, then it will highlight group 1 in the group tree. And so if I expand group 1, I'll see that group 1 is actually comprised of, let's see here, 127 groups that are anything from the buildings to the roads to the parks. Okay, so group 53, as you can see, is actually just this building back here. So I want to edit these two buildings right here because this is where our footprint is going to be, or our site is going to be, so these are going to be visible. And as you can see, this geometry right here isn't super clean. So what I'm going to have to do is double click to get into the group, the large group, after hovering over it. So I'm going to double click on the mouse, and then that opens up all of these individual groups. And I'm going to go to the advanced geometry tools and click on it and click join geometry, or the shortcut GJ, or actually JG, and click on the two pieces of geometry that I want to join. So that would be this one here and this one here. Once those two pieces are joined, I can click the select button or the check button up here, and it should nicely join both of those together. So I realized that I need to do just one more thing, so we're going to double tap to get into these groups, and then what's happening is there's a lower building that is still sticking around for some reason. So I'll just click on that once to grab that group, and then hit delete on my computer or on my keyboard, and now that geometry is just a little bit more clean, which looks pretty nice. We can start by creating our first sequence or our first scene in our diagram, and we're going to do that by activating the rectangle tool, which is found over here in the sketch toolbar, or of course we can press the shortcut R. So I'm going to press R, and what I think I want to do is I want to have our site be off the corner of this building and off the corner of this building. So Formit has these little shortcuts that let modeling on a plane like this pretty easy. So what I'm going to do with my rectangle tool activated is I'm going to go over to this corner and hover on it until I see the text box say on vertex. So what that's going to allow me to do is just snap to this, I guess this would be the y-axis. So I'm going to come off the y-axis a little bit, and then left click with the mouse to put my first point down. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, on this building, wait till the on vertex symbol pops up, and then here I can find the y-axis, x-axis intersection, and then left click on my mouse again, and then I can bring it over as far as I think this building footprint or this site should be. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here, and what that does is that makes a plane. So Formit recognizes lines, which can be seen right here, and once lines are closed to form, or basically just closed at all, they form something called a plane like this. So now this triangle is a plane. And the neat thing about planes is that this program is just really nice for pushing and pulling objects. So if we wanted to extrude this up 150 feet, all I'd have to do is click on the surface of this plane once, and then click on the surface of the plane again, and then I'll just pull it up. And what you're seeing here is it's actually snapping to the nearby heights. Let's say I'll pull it up to be 100 feet or 124 feet. I'll press left on the mouse, and that's where it is. An alternative way to do that is to, again, click on this, pull it up, and then start typing in 150, and then press enter, and then that will also get it up to that high as well. But what we're going to do is we're just going to keep this a plane so that it can represent our building footprint. So let me just take this opportunity to quickly go over how Formit handles layers and objects and stuff. And we kind of hinted at it earlier. And to do this, I'm actually going to switch around my user interface. I'm going to put this back over here, and I'm going to bring my groups tree. I'm going to pull it over here and put it on the side. So I'm going to have my groups tree over here and my layers right here. And what you're going to see is that this piece of geometry, this plane that I just made, is currently ungrouped. It's undefined. It's on the generic drafting canvas, and so it doesn't have a way to be put on a layer to be turned on and off. To do that, we simply need to double click on the object to grab all of the object, and then we can hit G. Alternatively, you can double click on it and click the right button on your mouse to bring up a contextual menu. And then this contextual menu is actually pretty nice because it shows you everything you can do with this at any given point. So we'll click here, create group. And what that does is you can see in the groups tree is it creates it puts this object on its own group. So we can set it and we can put it on a different layer to turn it on and off. So what I recommend doing is double clicking on the group in the group tree, and we can name it footprint. Press enter and actually copy that name before you press enter. So we've copied footprint, and we can come over here to the layers tab, add a layer, and then name this layer footprint. And now we're going to select this group, and in the layers tab we're going to say select on footprint layer. And what that does is that allows us to turn this on and off. So that's basically going to be the workflow for setting up the scenes or the sequences that we're going to make for our graphic as well. So basically what we've done is we've just set up the groundwork to make our first scene, or what I'm going to call sequence. And if you can remember back to our little presentation, all this is 8 different PDF pages, and each one has nothing moving but the building itself. And so you can see this is going to be our first slide or our first sequence, and that's just going to be the building footprint. So what we need to do now is just make these other volumes and arrows and things that show action upon our building. So I've found a nice way to make sure that the building is staying in place perfectly is to mark out some of the angles or the corners on our footprint, and that is going to look something like this. So now that these are marked out, I can turn off the footprint layer and holding down Control, multi-select these lines. And we'll do the same thing. We'll press G to group them, and we'll call this group Site Corners. Again, we'll copy this, add a layer, paste it, and then put these on the Site Corners layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our first typical building for the second sequence in our diagram. And so what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing the rectangle tool, or R as the shortcut, and I'm going to grab the corners that I need. So now I'm just going to extrude this up about 300 feet. So again, let me do this. It's a little bit fast, but to quickly activate the push-pull settings, you just click on a surface once to activate it, and then you click on it again to move or to get a point to move from. So we're going to go in the up direction or the positive Z direction, and then we're just going to type in 300. We're going to press enter, and as you can see, now we have a 300-foot tall volume. This big volume is going to serve as our typical building sequence or our typical building scene, and so the same workflow applies. We're just going to double click it to grab everything, and then press G, which will make a group, and then we'll call this sequence 1, I guess, S1 for short. And then let's make a new layer, call it S1, and then put this object on this layer. Now we can turn this on and off. So now it's time to model our first action, and that is going to be this large red cutting plane. So we're going to go back and off to the side. Well, actually, this is just our first building typical, and so what we're going to do is we're going to double click to get into the group, and then double click again to grab this whole object. We're going to use Control C to copy it, and then click out, and then turn this off, and then Control V to paste that same object onto the general canvas or the typical one or whatever. And off to the side, we can model another plane. But first, I'm going to activate the Properties tab, and we're going to click on this line right here, and it's going to tell us that it's 167 feet. So we want our cutting plane to be basically quite a bit bigger than that. And so we'll make our cutting plane, 250 feet by 150. So let's do that off to the side. We'll press R for rectangle, and we'll do 150 feet in this direction by 250 feet in this direction. So now that that's made, we're going to move this onto the center of the building and then drop it down. And to do that, we need to double click here, and then when you double click it, I don't know if I've explained this yet, but if you click it once, that activates the push-pull setting. But if you double click it, it grabs the whole entire object, and then it activates the move command. I'm going to grab this, We'll move it just barely above. So it's right on the face right here, and we'll just go barely above. Now that the cutting plane is just right above the building, we can move it down to about halfway. And so to do that, double click, grab it from the middle. We can move it up to tell it that we want to move it in the Z axis, but then we can type in a number that will move it from where it was previously moved from, if that makes sense. So now we're going to say 150, and it's going to slide down to about halfway on the building. And at this point, you know, it's kind of a flimsy looking cutting plane. So to fix this, we can grab this side and then grab it and say we want to move it out 20 feet. We can move that out 20 feet, and then we can move the one in the back out 20 feet to beef it up a little bit. So we have the cutting plane modeled and in there, and looking back at our PDF, it looks like the next step is to draw this arrow and sort of explode the building. So I'm just going to run through that. First thing we need to do is group this, and let's name this S2, and make another layer called S2. Put this on that layer. Now let's turn it off. And we're just going to run through this again. R for the rectangle tool. We're going to extrude it up 150 feet. We're going to copy this. Bring it up another. Actually, maybe we'll just put it right on top of this. Yeah. So now let's bring this up 100 feet. And now we have our two pieces of our building. What we need to do is make an arrow. So right over here on the general canvas, let's just kind of eyeball it and make something that looks pretty nice. You can right click and bring up the contextual menu and draw this, and click mirror. And then we'll snap right here and come down -90 degrees. We'll continue this line to close it and to make a plane. And I'm gonna beef this up a little bit. I might add 10 feet of thickness just to make it look a little bit nicer. It's totally up to you all though. You can keep it just a flat plane. And what we're gonna do now is take this and position it in a way where it makes sense. So we can press Q, or we can choose the rotate command in the contextual menu, and we're going to rotate it so that it's facing up. And to do this, we need to grab this end and right here. Wait, actually bring this way. And now Q, bring this right here, and then drop this all the way down so that it's going up, and it's going to be 90 degrees. And that's going to look nice. And we still need to rotate it again, so we'll do Q, and we'll just rotate it 90 degrees. And to move this, I'm just going to grab the whole thing, or double click the whole thing, and then grab it on the top point right here. Wait for a second for the oncentroid command to come up, and then we're going to move it up. Let's see. We're going to move it up a little bit so that it's just hovering between both volumes. So right about there. So now it's positioned in between the two pieces. We can group this whole thing, so same process for grouping. G, and we're going to call this S3, and we can put this on S3. Now we can turn that off. So going back to our PDF, The next one is we have it being pulled out a little bit. So this is going to be kind of nice because we can basically reuse everything from S3. So let's double click to get in, grab this, and we'll do Control C, and we'll bring it back out into the main canvas. Control V to paste it in place. And now I'm going to grab this arrow and grab this arrow, and we need to rotate it again. So Q, and let's go 90, and then let's bring this actually we need to rotate it this way. Let's go 90 in that direction. And we'll grab it from the rear center point, and we'll put it just a little bit off the face. Once again, we can group all of this stuff. So press G, S4, let's make another layer. And now it's there. And it looks like next we're going to just pull it out a little bit. So we can take, I believe that is actually the last thing is still on our clipboard, so we can press Control V again. And this time we can just get rid of this, and we're just going to simply grab this and pull it out 80 feet. So again, and quicker way to do this is we can turn off the buildings and the sight corners and drag over and press G. It's 5. That's 5. All right, now this is on here, so let's go back, and there's that one, so it's being pulled out, and now we just need to push it down on place. So we have 2 more sequences left. Let's borrow that arrow that we just made. So I can do, well, let's go back to S5, and we'll take this thing and this thing, copy them, bring them back out, turn this off, and let's go back to S3, and we'll take this arrow, and we're just going to rotate this around. So Q to rotate it. We need to make sure this is crazy, so put this right here, and 180 should work, yeah. Grab it from the center point, bring it to the center point up here, and then just lift it off a little bit. So now we have our second to last sequence. We're going to group it. S6. And put it on layer 1. All right, so we're going to take these 2 things, turn this off, paste it into place, and then I think we can just grab this piece and put it directly on top of this piece. And it looks like it's 2 separate things on top of each other, so maybe we want to make these look like there's the same building. So we'll double click, hold on Control, and go to the advanced geometry tools, and we'll just do join geometry. And now we'll press OK, and now that line goes away. So this will be the last sequence. So we can group this. S7. and then add a layer, and we can just add it to layer 1. We'll do S7. And so now we have, quickly you can see that the footprint, I think we can actually move these around. The footprint is on. Let's turn off the corners. We have the footprint, then after that, the typical building, and then the cut, and the arrow up, arrow out. And it looks pretty nice. Oh wait, I forgot to turn that off. Yeah, so now what we can do is we can start to add some color and materials. So now we need to add some color and make it just really pop. So to do that, we're gonna need to go get some colors. And I learned a lot of this stuff from this guy right here. His name's Oliver. He has a really cool channel. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description, and definitely go check it out. But we're gonna go to Adobe Color, so you can just search that in Google and click on this, and it'll bring you to this kind of tool. And I really recommend you guys exploring and trying to use this tool, because it's really nice. So what we can do is go to the Explore tab and just use something like Bright, and we'll see that Bright can it shows us some different color palettes. And what you can do with this is you know, this one looks pretty nice, and so we can try to use this for our project. And you can download this as a JPEG, and so it'll bring up the download option, and we can show it in folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it from here, and I have a digital library that I can just save it to, and I have color palettes, and so I'll save it to this digital library. And so later I can double click on this, and it brings up this nice color palette with the I think these are the HTML color codes. So we'll need to now create the materials that are going to paint the things in our diagrams. To do that, go over here to this materials tab, and we need to make sure that we are in the Sketch menu. These material samples are realistic looking materials like bricks and glass and concrete, but for this diagram we're just going to use colors. And to get started, we need to click the plus icon, which will bring up a new color or a new material. And from our diagram, I remember having at least these 4: red, green, blue, and this purple. And each of them represent different things. So for the first material we're going to say it's going to be the footprint. So the footprint is going to have this purple color, and to do that we press on the color, and obviously there are some preset colors here, but we're going to press on pick color on screen, or pick screen color, and just hover over this and press OK, and it's going to add this color to this material. And it's really just as easy as that. So we're going to repeat that process 3 more times to get the colors that we need. All right, now we have all the colors that we're going to need. So let's get started by making our footprint. We're coloring our footprint. And to do that, you just go over here and you hover over the color, and then you click on it. And then I think what you need to do is just click on it once, and there, now we have a nice and purple footprint that'll really pop out. So let's just go through and bring up the other sequences or scenes, and we'll color them as needed. So what you need to do here is just double click to get into the group, pick the color again, and then just pick the face that you want to color. So that seemed to work. And color this whole arrow. Now if you click once, it'll just paint this one face, but if you double click on an item, it'll paint the whole thing. So now that arrow is red. We can do the same thing with this arrow. And this arrow. And then finally, I think it'll be nice to show that this green space up here is on top of the building. So you might be wondering about the water. That's why I kept the coastline in here. It's because I want to clearly show that there's water right here. So what I'm going to do is we can go ahead and hide this for now. So we'll go over here to the coastline. So let's just go down here to the edge of this building and we'll come straight across. And if you hold down the shift key, it'll snap to this axis that we're drawing on. So we can snap all the way to here. And I think just so that we don't have any mix up, we're going to make it a little bit bigger than what it needs to be. We're going to bring it all the way over here and then finish it. And now we have this big plane, which is going to stand as our ocean. And to do that, we'll just click the water color and bring it on. So as you can see in this presentation, everything is nice and orthogonal or axonometric. And so we need to apply those styles to achieve that same look. To do so, let's get started by, you can press this button, which will throw it into orthographic view, or press VO. And so now it's an orthographic view. We need to pay a lot of attention to this visual styles tab right here. First and foremost, we're going to turn the grid off, and we're also going to turn the axes off. As you remember, we're in San Diego, and we have some shading to throw in there. So to do that, we first need to go up here to the location tab, or select location. And right now we're not in San Diego, so let's just search San Diego, and that'll bring us right here to where we need to be. And what this will do is it will set the location so that the weather, or the shading rather, will all be appropriate. So next we need to go right here to turn on the shadows, and we can kind of get a look that will complement our diagram. And I think it's kind of nice if you have a little bit of a contrast between one side of the building and the other. The thing we need to do before we export these as images is come back to the visual styles dialog, or this tab, and we are going to, and let me get this to show, we're going to turn on some thick edges to have a little bit more definition, and we can turn this contrast all the way up, and we can turn the silhouettes on, and we can turn this all the way up. And what this does is it just plays with the way the buildings are outlined. And so actually another way to do that is you can turn the edges off so that it's just the silhouettes, which I think this looks pretty nice because then you have the two sides that are shaded. But it's totally up to you. I'm just going to leave them on for this exercise. But now we have all the visual styles set, and what we need to do is just go through one by one for these sequences and export them as images. Now to do that, we're going to, you can either go up here to File and export locally, or a quicker way to do it is Control E. So we'll use Control E, and this is all the way down here at the bottom is as image, and you can set this to whatever your viewport is, or you can just go ahead and make it, this is like 4K, so that'll look pretty nice. So if you press OK, it will prompt you to have these export as PNG files, but I think JPEG is actually a little bit better to do that. So remember, we'll go to our appropriate folders, and I'm just going to do another folder. So I'm going to put it in this secondary folder. This was from the project that I showed you all, but it's going to be a JPEG. And since this is the footprint and we want it to show up first, just because it'll be easier later on in the process, we're going to put a 1 in front of it, and then we can just do footprint or sequence 1 or whatever you want to do. Press enter, and all you're going to do is go through each of the slide or each of the sequences and export it. So I'll just show it again one more time. And remember, it's going to always try to get you to do it as a PNG. You want to do JPEG for various reasons. But here it is again, and we'll do 2, and this is just the typical building. Now I need to stress that once you're in this view that you've already exported, it's really important not to orbit or change the perspective at all. And one way that you can ensure this is you can go in and make scenes for each one of these sequences. And what that does is if I go now and I switch it around, I can come back up here to the scene, double click on it, and it'll bring me back to exactly where it was before. And so you can do this once here and then just apply the different layers that need to be on. But that's just a surefire way to not mess up the perspective. So all of our images have been exported correctly from Formit, and now we need to open up a new design in InDesign. So let's go create new, and I'm going to work in inches, and it's going to be 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5. Everything looks okay, so we're going to create a new one. And the thing that I'm going to do here is go up to the pages, double click on the master, and use the rectangle frame tool to make a rectangle in the center of or a square in the center of the page. And I'm going to hold down shift so that it is locking the aspect ratio. And then let's find the center. And it looks like there is our rectangle right in the middle of the page. And what we're going to do is add, let's see, 7 more of these since there's 8 sequences. So now all we need to do is grab the pictures from the files. So you can go to File and Place, or you can see here, just press Control D. So we're going to press Control D on the first page, and we're in the appropriate folder. And I'm just going to press Control A to grab all of them, and then press Open. And since our master page has the rectangle or the square in the middle, we can just click once here on each one of these pages. In addition to placing them, we need to make sure that they're centered inside the frame the way that we want them to be. So I think to do that, we're going to press Control Alt Shift C for centered, and we can see that if we double click, then the image is centered within the frame. And again, I'm going to try it here, and if you don't know the keyboard shortcuts, then you go to Fitting and Fill Frame Proportionally. And so I'm going to repeat that process for the next 6 images. So we have all of our exported images in our InDesign file. The last thing we need to do is add some text, and this is up to you. If you don't think you need text, then don't include it. But in this situation, we're going to add a text or a text box or type tool, and let's just put it right here, and we'll make sure that it's centered. And then we will click on this, and while this is selected, press Control B to bring up the text frame options. And let's align this to the center. And let's click in here, and we'll paste some stuff in here. And so all we need to do now is just define these fonts. And what I like to use is, let's go to Properties, and let's go to this font right here, which you can find somewhere on the internet. You can go to I think Adobe fonts and download them, but let's use the bold for up top, and then down here we can use the Futura book, and that way they go together pretty nicely. and we'll capitalize the S. Let me zoom back out. And now if we toggle, this is what it's going to look like when it's printed, which I think is going to look pretty nice. And just to let you guys know, if you want to copy this text and put it on another page, you can grab it and Control-C to copy it. And then once we're on this page, you can press Control-Alt-Shift-V, and it'll paste it in the exact same position. So I think that's a pretty helpful tip. So finally, we are just going to export it. So now that everything looks nice, it might be good maybe to save it first. So we'll do Control-S to save it, and then we can put it in the place that it needs to go. And now we're just going to export it. So we'll do Control-E for exporting, same as Formit, and we'll call this the second one, or the 2, and it's going to be Adobe PDF Print. Make sure print is activated. You can do interactive, but we don't have any interactive stuff in our document. And we just click save, and I just accept all of the generic options. And once this blue status bar is done up at the top, alright, so at the end of it all, we have a PDF presentation that is going to look pretty nice and crisp and interactive. And so we can bring it into the PDF, any kind of PDF viewer that you have. I'm going to use Acrobat here. And if you're in Acrobat, you can just press Control-L. Well, actually, once it's on, Control-L, which will bring it up into full screen. And you can either use the arrow keys to go back and forth, or you can use the scroll wheel to go up and down. And everything is pinned to the same spot, so the only thing moving is our building, our massing design. So that's everything, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any tips or tricks or know of anything that I could have been doing differently, please leave them in the comments down below. And also, I will be linking some videos that are related to this project that might just be something else that you want to try. So thanks everybody, and that's it.